All right. Welcome to everyone who may have joined us. We're just going to take a moment here and allow everyone to join our webinar today. So hello and welcome to another installment of our Wireside Chat produced by CTIConnect. I'm Joey DeGrava, and today we'll be discussing the importance of seeking funding for the purposes of broadband expansion and traversing the complex landscape of funds that exist from government to private capital. We're joined today by Carl Guardino, VP of Government Affairs at Tarana, and Sean Welsh, VP of Mergers and Acquisitions at Stefanov Capital. Hello to you both.
Hey, Joe.
So would you each like to just take a couple minutes to introduce yourself and your companies? Carl, why don't you start?
Joey, I'd be delighted, and it's a pleasure to participate in the CTIConnect Wireside Chat. As Joey mentioned, for those of you not familiar with Tarana Wireless, let me take just a couple of moments to provide you with the history and the technology as to why Tarana Wireless is providing so much value in such a short period of time. Tarana Wireless was founded 14 years ago in 2009. It's still a pre-public company. And what's exciting about Tarana Wireless is that it is the innovation economy in the United States when it's done well. 3 international students were studying together for their PhD graduate degrees at UC Berkeley. And in addition to being incredibly smart technologically, earning their PhDs, they also had a passion for how do we help bridge the digital divide around the globe, as they had all experienced the limitations of communities in which they were raised in their 3 different countries in terms of the digital divide and its impact on families. So they did their senior thesis together on how do we help impoverished villagers in Ghana, in Africa, where none of them were from. Well, they turned in the thesis, they got an A, and they started a company in true innovation economy, America tradition. Well, fast forward 14 years, this company, Tarana Wireless, founded in the United States, is headquartered in the United States. Most of our 400 employees and 26 PhDs are here in the United States. All of our intellectual property is in the United States. And in addition, all of our manufacturing is done by 2 United States headquartered companies, all in North America. Why is Tarana Wireless turning heads in just the 8 quarters, 2 years in which our customer products have been available on the market? And that's because they started from a clean sheet of paper on how do we address the challenges that so often have stumped traditional wireless applications. And those challenges are, what do you do when you're non-line of sight? Since 4 out of 5 American homes don't have the luxury of direct line of sight to a cell tower, water tower, vertical asset, etc. So that was challenge 1. Challenge 2, whether you're in licensed or unlicensed spectrum, what do you do about interference, noise cancellation? So the first issue, non-line of sight, they tackled through very sophisticated technologies that work on reflections and refractions, where we don't go around that hill or that strand of trees or that building or inclement weather or the FedEx truck driving in front of your house, but we go around them with just incredible compute capacity to do so. The second, of course, is, again, interference cancellation, whether you're in spectrum or not. And the best way I can describe that is, remember when we were kids and we'd put on those Bose headphones, and It silences outside noise by nulling it, not by jamming and being a bad neighbor, so that we no longer hear, if you want to use the term, other conversations. They no longer hear us, and we have that direct signal. So those are the two technologies that have led to this. In just 8 quarters, Tarana Wireless is pleased to have more than 260 internet service provider partners operating and serving communities in 26 countries and 41 states in the United States, with a 97% plus conversion rate of an ISP trying the product and buying the product.
Excellent. It's a great story there. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. So I'm Sean Welsh, VP of Acquisitions at Stefanov Capital. For the last decade or so, I have been working in the telecommunications industry, spending time in hardware, software, and services. Throughout that time, it's really provided me with, different insights into the ISP market, where I was able to work hand in hand with executives, ensuring best practices for network design, procurement, financial services, typically with focus on cost efficiency and integrations. So today, as the VP of Acquisitions, I feel like that background really helps me understand who the operators are and who we're working with on a day-to-day basis. I kind of draw from my past as I'm trying to identify opportunities or foster collaborations with the hopes of driving growth in the market. And as far as Stefanov Capital goes, our primary goal is to help ISPs, WISPs, navigate the merger and acquisition transaction process with ease. We can help grow, we can help you with an exit plan, we can help you raise capital, find strategic partnerships, you name it. Every business, every operator is unique in their own ways, whether it be the size of their network or geographically. So each individual discussion really kind of helps us figure out the best plan for who we're working with.
Awesome. Thank you both for being here today. I'd like to make it known that if any of our audience members has a question, don't hesitate to put it into the chat. While we won't be addressing questions during our discussion, we'll reach out to you directly to have that conversation. So let's cut right to the most important question every ISP should ask themselves is, why should I pursue a source of funding? As we all know, Tarana puts forth a very powerful technology, and with that comes the need for a solid strategy of deployment, which should include a funding strategy. So, Carl, can you share from your perspective at Tarana why pursuing a broadband grant is so important?
Joey, happy to do so. And I think his name was Willie Sutton, but there was a Depression era bank robber who was asked, why do you rob banks? And he said, I rob banks because that's where the money is. And right now, because of the COVID epidemic, because of a lot of factors, the federal government here in the United States, as well as multiple states, have realized just how critical high-speed, affordable, reliable home broadband is to our everyday lives, whether that's our jobs, education for our kids, telehealth, a variety of factors why they've realized it's important, and to address that challenge have poured billions of dollars into the space so that we all can do our jobs better of serving families in our communities. So right now, there is once in a lifetime funding sources through several different funding pots that we'll go over later. And why would any ISP want to limit where they look for potential sources of funds when we are doing our best to serve families in our communities? So keep a broad lens open as you consider private sources of funding as well as public sources of funding at all levels of government.
So Sean, you come from the private capital realm, and you've seen many success stories through the avenues of alternative funding. Can you share why you feel every ISP should be considering it?
Yeah, absolutely. So before even looking at it side by side with federal or state money, there's a need for that private money for a lot of different reasons, mainly the evolving landscape of broadband. As we've seen over the last couple of years, the increase in demand has just really shown us where all the faults are. The constant changing of technological needs, whether it be IoT or emerging technologies, constant upgrades, infrastructure expansion, are all areas that need to be met as the industry grows. And then, additionally, the infrastructure challenges. So rural areas and hard to reach urban pockets, they often lack the required infrastructure. Bridging this gap is just going to be essential to ensure, universal access. And then when you're looking at it side by side with public funds, there's limitations when you rely solely on those public funds, where that money is coming from the government, whether it be the insufficient resources that they provide. Some states have one person in their broadband department, other states have a few dozen. There's also bureaucratic delays. We don't exactly have timelines for every project or every time a dollar is going to be divvied out. And then we're also up against inflexible usage. Public grants sometimes come with different restrictions, and they limit the innovation or the adaptability in deploying some of these broadband solutions. So some of the advantages of private funding are going to be speedy procurement. You'll be able to get those funds fairly quick. You're not going to have to jump through all the same hoops. It's not easy by any means. There's a process, but it's definitely a lot faster. And then you can also look into tailored financial solutions. Like I said before, every ISP, every WISP is unique, and private funding really allows everyone to be themselves and take a look at their individual situation to best, place a value on that company and see what the growth potential is. And then with that private money, they also encourage innovation. They want to see you kind of take the next step. They want to see you build out a network and gain more market share. And then also with private money, you can leverage some of the expertise. Sometimes as an operator, you're forced to wear all these different hats, and being a financial expert, it just doesn't have to be one of them always. So when you partner with the right, group or company that can help you understand the private money world, sometimes some other insights come with it, whether it's strategic partnerships, market expertise, whatever it may be. It's just helping to propel the ISPs towards better outcomes.
Fantastic. So let's turn now to understanding the landscape of kind of the funding opportunities that exist. What does an ISP actually have access to, and how much money is available? So Carl, can you give us an understanding at the federal level or others of those opportunities?
Joey, I'd be delighted, and I'm going to just underscore that as important as Joey and Sean are, they're not the most important person on the screen, and it's certainly not me. It's Taylor, because Taylor is going to put up slide 4 so that people can visualize what I'll also be sharing. Taylor, would you mind putting up slide 4? Thank you. What I wanted to be able to visualize, and happy to send out this information to anyone participating in CTIConnect Wireside Chat this morning, is just for the federal level, the different agencies that are overseeing different programs with different pots of funds, and how much is still left in each pot of those funds as well. What I'll be mentioning orally, and again, I can send more information to anyone that's interested, is what are some of the other requirements, such as speed requirements or latency requirements for those pots of funds. But let's start with the Department of Commerce, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA. And because of the Broadband Infrastructure Law, often called the IIJA, of the fall of 2021, That sweeping piece of legislation also included titles or categories for broadband funds. The biggest is BEAD, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. And that allocated $42.45 billion for the 50 states and 6 US territories. Well, June 30th of this year, when the Federal Communication Commission's final maps were prepared, the NTIA informed all 50 states, all 6 US territories, how many dollars each state could be receiving if they meet the rules to receive the federal funds. Well, Tarana Wireless is headquartered in California, so I'll use California as an example. Based on the maps, California, if it complies with the rules, will receive $1.86 billion. For ISPs on this call who operate in Texas, that amount was $3.31 billion. If you are in Kansas, that amount is $484 million. So you can check with me after the call, or you can check online at the NTIA and see how much is each state and territory eligible for. Well, because this is a new program, almost all of it is still available. The part distributed to date, each state received $5 million in planning grants. Already the territories received a lesser amount, and that was for them to start their process. As Joey and Sean alluded to, those state broadband offices, if they existed at all, were awfully thin. So that planning money helped them to start their plans, start to staff up their offices, et cetera. Also in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law of 2021, and also assigned to the NTIA, is the Digital Equity Act funds, which is about $2.75 billion. And as you can see, most of that is also still available. The next one, also under the NTIA, is Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program. So those of you who are serving tribal nations in your communities, there are a distinct pot of funds to help those tribal communities to have reliable, affordable, high-speed broadband. And as you can see, it was almost $3 billion. Some of that has already been distributed, nearly 2/3 of it, but there's still well over $1 billion left. Now, the United States Department of Agriculture also has Community Connect and Reconnect funds, and they're about to go into round 4, and that's expected to be nearly $2 billion. So if you haven't met with Andy Burke and his team over at USDA, this is a very important program solely focused on rural America, since nearly 1 out of 4 citizens of the United States who live in rural America still are unserved or underserved when it comes to home broadband for their families and in their communities. U.S. Treasury also has funds, and that's run by a gentleman named Joseph Winder. In the Treasury Department, it was the Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund. It was $10 billion. Update here, they announced just yesterday, they have now allocated funds to 47 of the 50 states. So 3 states still haven't received allocations, and they get it by basically just applying, and they have $2 billion left in this initially $10 billion program. U.S. Treasury also had ARPA state and federal funds, huge pot of money. A portion of it could be used for broadband. Again, that has been distributed, but has been available. And please note, not only federal funds, but many states have put their wallets where their own words are to put funds forward. And who can apply for the funds? In almost every category, in addition to government agencies, nonprofits, cooperatives, counties, cities, U.S. territories, tribes, often internet service providers can apply for these funds as well. So you'll want to get to know the program, the process, the timeline, the guidelines for any pot of funds if you're thinking about federal, state, or even local funds in any of these programs. Joey, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you. A lot there. So Sean, outside of the government level grants, there are many ways.
Feel free to take down the slide. Sorry, Joe.
Yep, not a problem. So yeah, outside of like the government level grants, there's many ways that ISPs can attain funding at Stefanov, and you can bring a lot of options to fill gaps where grants are not enough or not available. And you can essentially help them better understand how to access capital in a lot of creative ways. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a general overview, some of the ways or products that an operator would go about securing some funding, they could do it using equity, or they could use it, take on debt, where equity, it would be a benefit because you're not going to take on extra debt and have that burden. And then you might also have that access to investor expertise, typically suitable for businesses that anticipate strong growth, willing to share ownership and control. Taking on debt benefits or retaining your full ownership. Potential tax deductions, often has a fixed interest rate. It's suitable for businesses with steady revenue and those wanting to really maintain full control. Then you also have your venture capital groups. You have your private equity, where private equity would, it could really help to transform your business because of the lump sum of money that could be coming your way. And they might also be able to provide that expertise that you're missing, depending on what your organization really looks like and what it's missing. That's really best for mature companies seeking growth or restructuring opportunities. And then you have bridge loans, which could provide quick liquidity, short-term financing, ideal for businesses that are waiting for that longer-term financing, or just need, a temporary loan during a crunch. All of those different, options, again, unique to each individual business. And what we do at Stefanov Capital, it's one of the things we hang our hat on, is being able to place a value on providers. We're going to assess the current financial health, the growth trajectory, the market positioning, scalability potential. We're going to take a look at infrastructure requirements, expansion plans, technology deployment, get an understanding of your management team, what their vision is, their capabilities, their execution strategies. And then when you kind of balance all of those factors out, it allows us to provide options and what they may look like if we decide to go bring a strategic partner in because we've identified areas of weakness, or if it is just a straight financial play. These reviews and conversations will really help us pinpoint what those options are, and kind of put the ball back into a business owner's court so that he can go home and talk to his wife, talk to his family, and get a feel, do his own research. And this is the options that were presented to me, and we just kind of keep working back and forth together. It's definitely an emotional journey, talking to a business owner who built the company out of need for their community, that maybe none of their neighbors or their church or their local library didn't have internet. And 15 years ago, they decided they were going to put a tower up and provide it to everybody. So having these conversations can get quite emotional, and honesty is always the best policy with us, just because everything kind of comes out through this process at one point or another. And having access and understanding of all these different options, your private funding and then your public funding, it's really going to help you build that diverse financial strategy, which is super important. It's going to help you mitigate risks. If you're relying on a single funding source, you could really expose your business to financial vulnerabilities. Flexibility, using different types of loans or grant money can really help you pivot or adapt to technology changing or demand in your certain area. It can also help you leverage opportunities. having access to capital and partners and strategic partners, it's going to help you be able to seize growth, or if there's acquisition opportunities that might kind of come your way, that you're already prepared for it, and that your neighbor competitor isn't able to kind of take a deal from you before you even really had a chance at putting your hat in the ring. So that's kind of how we look at it. Obviously way more detailed as everything in this industry, but that's a general overview of how we see it.
Perfect. So I'd like to kind of bring this all together with what you guys think are the best practices in really attaining various funding. So Carl, from your position, what do you feel would be an operator's first step in kind of going after federal funding, and what strategies, put them in the best position to really win it?
Joey, thank you. And for those who like to take notes, write down 5 no's, and not N-O, but K-N-O-W. No, number 1, know the rules. And for example, I mentioned with the ARPA funds, $350 billion, and I said it had all been allocated. Yes, to the states and counties, et cetera, but that doesn't mean all that money's been sub-allocated yet. So a lot of that is still available. So 1, know the rules. And if you want to follow up, we'll help walk you through them from a Tarana Wireless perspective. 2nd, know the timeline, because a lot of them do have timelines. And I'll use the BEAD, that $42.45 billion pot of funds, as an example. So it's now in the hands of the 50 states, 6 US territories. The first step the states need to do to actually draw down their entire BEAD allocation is a draft 5-year BEAD action plan. About 15 of the states have put those online for public comment. The rest of the states and the territories will be putting those out soon. And you can find all that on individual state websites in which you do business to serve communities, or you can go to the NTIA website and check, or send me a text. And my team and I will be happy to help you in that direction. That's only step 1 for the BEAD funds. Then by the end of the year, step 2 is what's called an interim plan. And that is where you can actually start receiving those funds as a state, because once your interim plan is submitted and approved in an iterative process with the NTIA staff, they then send you 20% of your full allocation. The 3rd step then, sometime in 2024, and there are specific timelines again, is your final plan for a state or a territory. And once the final plan is reviewed, iterated, and approved, then the state gets their total allotment of funds. So again, know the timelines. The 3rd is know the decision makers. And do they know you in your company, your history in your communities of helping families have affordable, reliable, high-speed home broadband? They need to know that. They need to hear from you, stakeholders that you know, customers, et cetera. And I'll give an example. We have actually done in-state live deployment technology demonstrations in a half a dozen states, where we bring out the state broadband officers and their teams, as busy as they are, so that they can see the technology, meet the internet service provider with whom we're partnering, ask hard questions, kick the tires, speak with actual customers of the internet service provider, how their lives have been radically changed for the better from the days when they didn't have affordable, reliable, high-speed home broadband to today. We've done those live deployment demonstrations with state broadband offices in California, North Carolina, Indiana, Ohio, Kansas. In just the next couple of weeks, we're doing similar in the state of Washington, Utah, Arizona, Minnesota, and going back to Indiana, because I just love that state so much. And I'll give an example. We partnered with Lakeland Internet in Indiana. so that we could take the state broadband office out to see the great work that Lakeland Internet does and the partnership they have with Tarana to have speeds, our speeds up to 800 megabits per second, sliced however the customer wants that to be sliced. It's usually about 600, 200 if they want that much power, but well over the 100 by 20 requirements of most of the federal funding sources. Some of those federal funding sources are 100 symmetrical, but that goes back to knowing the rules. And then, as I mentioned, know the stakeholders who can help tell your story. Are you engaged in a trade association, a chamber of commerce, community groups, partners, customers? Who is your advocate other than yourself to tell your story? And then finally, the fifth know, hey, know that Tarana Wireless is here to help. Whether we have a current partnership with you as an ISP, or perhaps we might establish a partnership, we want to be able to share information because we're all trying to do the same thing. And that is every American family, currently unserved or underserved, has affordable, reliable, high-speed home broadband so that they can fully participate in society today.
Awesome. A lot of good stuff there. Sean, you deal with a lot of operators on the ground level with their project planning, right? Can you share some of the avenues that you've seen be successful there?
Yeah, absolutely. And these are, it's almost like a rule of thumb for a lot of these. So in order to be successful in obtaining any of this private funding, whether it's from a bank or a PE group, whatever it may be, you're going to need a clear business plan and vision. A well-articulated business plan provides potential investors or lenders a roadmap of how your business intends to grow and achieves its its objectives. It's having that robust business plan in place that's delineates its goals and strategies and has a path to profitability, it just serves as a testament to the company's preparedness and strategic thinking. So you also want to research and understand your market. Investors are going to want to know that the business understands who its target market is. It understands who its competition is. It understands the challenges that it might face. You want to showcase a deep understanding of your customer base, the demand drivers in the region, and how they differentiate from your competitors. You also want to build a strong team, strong management team. A company is always only as good as its team. Competent leadership and skilled team, whether it's installers or your customer support, billing, whatever it may be. It's all something that investors and banks are going to look at, and it's going to signal to them whether you're prepared and responsible enough to accept whatever money that you're asking for. You're also going to want to have a clear financial model and projections. You don't want to underestimate, you don't want to overestimate, you don't want to go back and ask for money again. Once you kind of get there, you're there, and your plan is how you present it. So having that clear model, presenting your past successes and your potential future profitability, can really show an investor growth potential that way. Staying technologically current. It's part of the way we value ISPs on an individual basis is what's in your network. And that really matters. And there's accelerators in there, and Tarana equipment, in that network is an accelerator for us. So when you get a multiple of your EBITDA, we put a kicker in there for things like having Tarana over, certain other brands. So yeah, definitely stay as current as possible. And then that also helps you protect your borders and somebody that might be using government money coming after you, you're kind of set up for success long-term. And then you want to engage financial consultants early, whether it's us, whether it's your bank, whoever it may be. Having these conversations early in the process is just really going to help relieve some of that stress. Just navigating the world of funding can be really intricate. Having an experienced financial consultant who additionally brings industry insights or connections and strategic advice is just a huge value. By engaging with those institutions, financial firms early on, you can really refine your strategy, kind of understand what your value is and what it will be based on the plans that you have in place, and see if there's any tweaks that need to happen. Kind of really help you put together a funding pitch. And then, all of those things combined just increases your chances of securing the right kind of funding.
Good. No, that's great. This is all really valuable stuff. So I want to thank you guys for joining us, and everyone else, the audience members, for joining us today, and especially Carl and Sean for a really fruitful conversation. Is there anything either of you want to kind of say in closing, just to kind of sum up your message here for anyone?
Well, first, Joey and Sean, I always gauge a panel discussion on how much I learned, and I've learned a lot from both of you today. So thanks for letting me and Tarana Wireless participate. And second, to the folks who have been participating on the Wireside chat today, we're in this together. We all have the same goal. We want to be able to be successful so that we can serve families and communities within our current area of focus and growing that area of focus. So if we can be of any help at all at Tarana Wireless, please send me an email, Carl, C-A-R-L, @taranawireless.com. We want to help in any way we can.
Fantastic. Yeah, so we would be glad to have you guys back for another one of these too, to just kind of dive into any other specific topics and programs that can be valuable to any operators out there who are just looking to build the best network possible for the future. So as you can see on the screen, our contact info is up here. If you guys have any questions, whether you've submitted them today during the chat or want to submit them directly here via phone or email, we are going to close with a survey. So before you leave, there'll be a survey, and included in that is really, we want to know where you're at in your funding journey, whether you've not yet identified funding sources, whether you have or you're not sure how to take the right first step, or if you're immersed in attaining funding and you're just looking to manage gaps and put together a strategy. All that is really beneficial for us to be able to help you guys with the next step of the project. So please don't hesitate to share your info. So that'll wrap it up today. I want to appreciate everyone for joining, and have a really great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Joey. Thanks, Sean.